So recent developments in investor targeting. As you all know, we all see a reduction in the number of free capital market conferences and roadshows. The most of you do. This is not just for small and micro cap companies, also mid, large and giant cap companies report that there is a reduction in conferences and in free capital market conferences and in roadshows. So these are numbers out of 2019. I couldn't find numbers out of 2020. 32% of IR teams use corporate access platforms and investor targeting solutions. This is a survey from Citygate, and 64% strengthen their own investor targeting and contact investors directly. As mentioned, these are numbers out of 2019, which means we speak about prior to COVID. And roughly half of you plan to hold more non-deal roadshows within the next 12 months. Use of corporate access platforms. If it comes to corporate access platforms, these here are figures from the IR magazine, also from 2019. And if we look here globally, roughly 50% in 2019 said corporate access platforms, this is not really important for us, and 25 mentioned that it might be slightly important. If you look here at especially European numbers, it's more or less the same. 48% mentioned that corporate access platform in 2019 are not as important. And roughly 27% mentioned that they are slightly important. Survey results, as you might remember, I've sent the most of you, or nearly all of you, email regarding how you organize your investor targeting, or do you have an investor targeting organized by yourself? And regarding own investor targeting, I received the answers from 12 companies. Thanks a lot. And we had 2 giant companies who have answered, 2 large cap companies, and in total 6 mid cap companies. I received 2 further answers this morning. 6 mid cap companies who have answered, and 1 small and 1 micro cap companies. Where do the companies get the data from? The most companies, or nearly all of them, mentioned they get it out of IHS Markit or Engage or IR Insight from Nasdaq. And additionally, another source is the shareholder ID. Especially the larger companies, large and giant cap companies, they do more self-analysis. And what are the criteria within the system? So what they do is they really analyze the system regarding the investors, and the criteria are peer investors, so investors who have invested in the peer group, sector investors, regional investors, large cap investors, and of course, current and past top investors. And quite a lot of you concentrate on the larger investors who have assets under management for, let's say, larger than 10 billion. This type of self-analysis is extremely time-consuming, and I think this is one of the reasons why mainly giant cap and large cap companies are doing this, due to the fact the teams are normally much larger, and there's one person who has the time to do all this necessary analysis. Other aspects that are considered in the context of investor targeting are, of course, own experience, like who is important because he's a good catalyst, own city lists, and some of you answered that they have prioritization of the results. For example, the really top 1 investors, they organize one-on-one meetings with them, and if it comes to top 2 investors, they offer them just group meetings. Just one quotation. One person mentioned, one investor relations mentioned, and I think this is describes it quite good in a nutshell. She mentioned, a few years ago, I did another fact check on the target, which previously considered of empirical values, broker information. With the help of our database and shareholder ID, we made certain specifications, such as who are the top investors, who was once a top investor, who invest in our sector, region, who is invested in large cap, and who has more than 10 billion assets under management. I will send you afterwards the quotations itself, the original quotations, so that you can have a closer look at them. Use of sell side. If it comes to the really large companies, the giant companies, they mainly focus on their own investor targeting, but they are open for sell side suggestions. Regarding broker-organized investor conferences, what they do is a screening of investors registered for meetings. They give a dedicated feedback to the brokers in terms of meeting participants, number of investors, and investor backgrounds. What they also do is they organize their own roadshows, especially if it comes to the large and mid-sized companies. They have a target list by locations, and they ask the brokers also if they can contact investors on this target list. And last but not least, in some cases, investors targeting still takes place exclusively via the sell side. This is mainly with small cap, sometimes mid cap companies, mainly if they do not have such a large team, such a large investor relations team, who has the time to do all this necessary analysis. And last but not least, some of the, especially micro cap companies, sometimes also small cap companies, they do not realize investor targeting themselves because the team is just too small, and they are itself too small for sell-side offers, which means they do not have the possibility to use the sell side, and they do not have the time to do their own investor targeting. And what they do is that they carry out for paid investor events. So that's it from my presentation. One last slide from our end. Of course, we offer investor targeting services. For example, analyzing new targeting group, as mentioned, this is extremely time consuming. We organize roadshows and we organize virtual investor conference. And our large USP in this area is that as an IR company, we do not need agreements with investors. We just can target every investor we would like to. That's from my end.